How's it going, everybody? Combo here. Today we got 5 quick tips with the AKM, or as some people like to call it, the worst FCAR. And while that may be true to some people, I believe there to be a bit more nuance in the discussion. So by the end of the video, hopefully you'll learn a couple things to maybe make you reconsider your loadout option and maybe give the AKM a try over that very sweaty FCAR that everybody loves to use. So without any more long exposition, let's get right into it. Starting things out at number 1, we have the most important thing for the AKM, that being how to manage the recoil. So if I fire all 36 rounds into this wall while holding down the trigger and not managing the recoil, you'll see we get a bit of an S shape. Now this is really important to know, and this works with any weapon that fires quickly or automatically. In order to get the most consistent shot grouping, we need to do the opposite of this. So as I showed right there, we'll fire it off because those go away pretty quickly. In order to get that consistent shot grouping, we are going to first hold to the right because it's going to the left. When it goes over here, you see it makes that S shape again. We're going to hold to the left, and as it's going over to the left, we're going to hold to the right. I know that sounded like a big cluster of things, so once again I'll show what it looks like. We're just going to do the opposite of this. So if it's going to the left, we're going to the right. If it's going to the right, we're going to the left, and vice versa. And the idea of this is to get everything in a tight ball. So you'll see me kind of make those micro adjustments as we go here. As you can see, as long as you can keep it mostly grouped, as you can see here, most of my shots were in the same spot, you're gonna have consistent success. And once again, all you're doing is the opposite of the recoil pattern, so make sure you keep that in mind. Next up at number 2, we have the equipment that you should be using with the AKM. Now really, this thing is super flexible. You can really use whatever you want, but this is what I like. Firstly, I like the tracking dart because being able to see targets through walls is very useful. And as we get into another tip later, it's very useful when you are behind cover. So once again, if I see this target, of course I can pock up and land some rounds. Next up, I love the frag grenade because I think it's the most consistent equipment in the game. It also does a ton of damage. Let's say you want to weaken a target. You know, I put a frag over here, or I throw one at a distance, you know, I get some easy damage. And because I have 36 rounds, being able to get a target low and then just immediately shift over to another one is very useful. And finally, you can use the jump pad. Now this is great for just general maneuverability. However, in my opinion, the AKM is actually quite good from the air. So if we have a target on the ground right here, and I get on this, as you can see, you know, you can actually do quite a bit of work in the air. Now granted, I wouldn't recommend doing this at targets that are like 10 years away, but as you can see right there, you can actually do quite a bit of damage. So that's my personal loadout. You can use whatever you want, but I would just definitely keep those things in mind. Next up at number 3, we have how to deal with those targets at those longer ranges. So you have 2 options. The first, as I showed off before, if you were looking at that recoil pattern, as you can see, the last about 15 rounds of the magazine tend to be much more tight. So what you can do if you're going for those long range targets, especially from like 40 meters out, if you want to go full auto and try to get a ton of damage, aka sacrificing consistency for burst damage, if you start near the feet like I'm showing right here, and I know that sounds crazy, let that recoil kick you up, and as you can see right here, as it levels out, you can hit those shots. However, you can do this, and as I said, as you start to get further away, this gets not as consistent. As you can see, you can hit shots, it might just be a skill issue, but what I like to do is just tap fire. So if I'm looking at this target right here, I want to find the perfect rate of fire and just tap. And as you can see right here, I'm sacrificing that high burst damage for the ability to hit those shots maybe at those longer ranges. As you can see, this target's moving. You know, I'm fairly consistent, and really this isn't much different than when you're in game. So once again, at those super long ranges, of course, you can wait for the recoil to kind of level itself out, as you can see here, to do that damage. But personally, I like to tap fire because I believe it to be more consistent, and as you practice it, you can actually do quite a bit of damage from pretty long ranges. Next up at number 4, we have the specialization you should be using with the AKM. Now this one, truly, this is personal preference, but I believe it to be the best. Now, the recon senses did just recently get a nerf. However, in my opinion, I still think this is the best for the AKM, and there's good reason for this. I believe this to be the best because of the constant uptime you have seeing targets through walls. Now granted, you could use the sonar grenade, you also have the tracking dart, But most of the time, especially with this thing, as we'll show in the next tip, pre-firing is very important, especially as I showed initially, the recoil pattern of this thing lends well to having fired a few rounds in order to get that stabilization and maybe go for headshots. So once again, in my opinion, the turret is good and it tells you where targets are, but nothing's as good as wall hacks. So once again, if I do this right here, and I can see where targets are. Maybe we run over to this area over here. We look up, we see where the targets are. Well, you would, but these are training dummies. And as I said, you can do quite a bit of damage, and just having the ability to know where targets are, because as I said, you can shoot this thing at those longer ranges, but it's gonna do better at those close to medium. Having the ability to know when a target's gonna turn a corner, especially with those invisible targets, will definitely save your life. And finally, at number 5, we have perhaps the most important thing with the AKM, that being pre-firing. And you're probably saying, well, yeah, pre-firing is pretty important for any weapon. However, I think it's most important with the AKM. As I said, we're going back to that recoil pattern again and again, but that last 15 or so rounds really like to level out. So if you want to do better at managing that, if I hit fire for a little bit and then aim down sights, you'll see those last few rounds are very tightly grouped. And that's really important. So the idea with pre-firing, right? It works best with either recon senses or the tracking dart, as I showed off earlier. But if we know where a target's at, we can hit fire a few rounds beforehand to stable it out. And as we come up, we're already firing. Now the advantage of pre-firing is rather than peeking up, finding a target and shooting, as you can see right here, if we're already firing and dealing that damage, all we have to do is aim down sights. And as you can see right there, we're already dealing damage to that target. And because the AKM's recoil pattern lends well to firing a few shots off beforehand, your recoil is going to be much more manageable. And if you do it right, as you can see right here, we can see him through the wall there. We'll start pre-firing, aim down sights, and because it levels out, as you can see, I can hit like all headshots on these targets. So once again, just keep that in mind. Having the ability to pre-fire with this thing is an essential part of the gameplay, and really the only way you're going to be able to compete with those FCARs if you want to win that duel. Anyways, everyone, I do hope you enjoyed this video. I apologize if it seems a bit rushed. I've been trying to get an upload out, haven't really had the opportunity. I figured I'd go for the AKM because I'm gonna be straight with you. 5 tips is kind of stretching it with this thing. It's a really simple weapon, but I will say that recoil pattern, pre-firing, and your loadout, as well as those long-range shots, are super important. So I guarantee I missed something because I know people use this thing every day. You know, let me know, because I'm human and I miss things, and if you use the weapon more than I do, I'm sure you know things that I don't. Anyways, everyone, I'm not going to keep you here forever. As I always say, thank you for the support on the videos. It really is appreciated. Be sure to share the video around if you have a friend that could use a little nudge, you know, maybe make you win a few matches. This video might help them out. Anyways, everyone, this has been Combo. Stay home, stay safe, and yeah, peace out, everybody. Later.